Hi, and welcome to 2020 predictions based on astrological transits. These will be for the world in general, and I will go through month by month and we'll talk about things like weather, geopolitical, potentially events, stock market, and any sort of major events that we may be expecting for each month. So let's see, in general, kind of a global trends that we have for 2020 are associated with long-term, slowly unfolding planetary transits. In particular, we have Saturn conjunct Pluto continuing to occur in Capricorn, and that's usually corresponding with major geopolitical changes, earthquakes, increased volcanic activity, and we will also have this conjunction being joined by Jupiter, and the key times for this would be for these kind of either 2 or 3 planets being joined together in Capricorn. The key times for that influence would be January through March of 2020 and then September through November. With Pluto joining Saturn and with Jupiter joining Pluto and Saturn in Capricorn, we can expect, in addition, some major transformations in sort of power structures, either heads of the, say, large corporations or heads of government. They may not only be replaced, but the sort of the structure of government, structure of how things are governed may change as well. And with Jupiter, I think things may, on the positive sort of manifestation, be that things may improve. And on the other hand, it may also bring kind of more government sort of and the power given to the government more than before, or government needs to step in more than previously to take care of things that perhaps are not doing so well, like infrastructure projects. Maybe there are major earthquakes or simply old infrastructure no longer can function. And so government or large corporations need to step in and basically take care of what has been either destroyed by nature or just because it's old and needs to be repaired. Additionally, with Jupiter, we may expect things like things being legalized. So maybe changing, whatever then going issues we have, maybe Brexit or China and Hong Kong, whatever the issues may be that involve kind of an entity that's comprised of multiple entities, and it's not clear where the borders are or who belongs basically in partnership with whom, or what's the union, who are the members of the union, etc. So Pluto joining all this will bring legalization and some sort of rights, I guess, to various groups. So the issue of rights of various minority groups may come up, or in general, basically any sort of new partnerships, or when an entity leaves a partnership, perhaps all of that would be then finally legalized and kind of finalized and written, I guess, in some sort of law. And also this will enable kind of a restructuring or changing or, I guess, simplifying perhaps movement of people from one area to another, or shipment of goods. So all these legal trading agreements may also be kind of finalized, so that it is a little bit more clear basically what can be shipped where, under what conditions, and which country basically allows something, which country doesn't, who can travel where, under what, I guess, permissions. At the same time, what may also occur under these kind of 3 planets being conjunct on Capricorn specifically is that not only governmental sort of power may increase, but there may also be global kind of changes in sort of, I would say, scandals may come up that involve leaders, either of large corporations or governments, and there may be something uncovered where it shows perhaps government or people who are in power in a bad light, by meaning maybe they're involved in some scandals, either even sex scandals, bribes, hidden manipulations, or even hiding some secretive information, or something about, say, pollution, about like nuclear power, weapons, something that's like normally is kept secret and hidden, and there may be some restructuring occurring, like maybe restructuring of how, say, Secret Service goes about doing things, or how mining operations work, and instead of like things polluting maybe the environment. Maybe now it's brought up and government steps in to basically help control and restrict that pollution. So it could be, again, some sort of a scandals erupt because something has been hidden, and it could be either hidden by, governments, by large corporate powerful entities, or perhaps those entities actually step up to help clean things up because they're the ones who have the sufficient resources and the power to actually do that. So for then separately, we will also have Pluto conjuncting Jupiter and kind of looking at that separately from Saturn, because sometimes it will be sort of kind of closer. Those two planets, Pluto and Jupiter in Capricorn will be closer than Saturn, and so those two planets together, I expect the times where the conjunction is the closest to coincide with major stock market, either top or bottom. I'm guessing top because Pluto, Pluto is also a powerful sort of a planet of power, but Jupiter usually brings situations where there are no borders or things kind of expand, balloon, and on some sort of optimism or on kind of international agreements being legalized, etc. So particularly worth mentioning are dates March 17th through April 15th, and then June 16th through July 21st. And in, I guess there we have, and then also November 3rd through 16th. And those might be the dates where we may have either tops or bottoms. Most likely, I think, is a top of the market. So those could be 3 peaks this year. And at the very minimum, those might be the times of kind of increased volatility where maybe there's a large sell-off because things just seem to have reached the top. And so then obviously some people will come in and scoop things sort of on the fall. At the very minimum, expect, like I said, volatility, large market moves, and in some areas there may be also some sort of inflation, as in like prices are kind of higher than perhaps justified, or there's maybe also an increase of supplies in that area, and so obviously prices would fall, but some sort of a kind of a exaggerated situation where things perhaps were artificially limited, and so the prices go up, and then suddenly the bubble bursts and there is an overflow of the particular, say, commodity, and so the prices, rapidly go down. And so the areas affected by that may be specifically anything that's mined from, the earth. So like metals, especially steel, coal, any sort of minerals, rocks, and any kind of materials that would be used in large-scale projects, like maybe building railroads or dams or something like that. And so it may be, again, the expectation of these projects coming up, again, sponsored by the government, is where, there may be interest in these, commodities, and then perhaps the project is, set on the back burner, and so suddenly the increase is decreased. Or like I said, there's artificial limitation, maybe because of some ongoing trade agreement, and so maybe there's limitation on, the supplies, but then the agreement, like I said, is legalized, and then suddenly, obviously, the shipment can go through, and so the prices go down. But either way, there will be increased focus during these 3 time periods, specifically on these commodities I just mentioned, as well as large-scale infrastructure projects, which may or may not be in sort of response to some sort of tragedy like earthquake, mudslide, bridge collapsing, tunnel collapsing, because again, this is already that started in 2019 and it will continue into 2020, where sort of large-scale infrastructure projects will be either sort of necessary or will begin, and the ones that are done well at this time may also stand the sort of test of time, and done well, they will be quite successful long term. So let's see, there's also going to be during these same times focus on things like debt, especially either sort of backed by securities backed by various municipalities, so maybe like municipal bonds, and or debt that is, like I said, acquired by governments, or somehow debt in relation to like government needs to come and help banks or something like that to help them basically with, I guess, their loans. and or there may be some international negotiations, or rather there will be international negotiations, but they specifically will involve like some sort of power manipulation, power plays that may involve either nuclear power, so that will be like a card played, and or debt, loans, rates, as well as major like immigration related changes, such as laws that affect certain underprivileged groups or are meant to prevent terrorism. So something along the lines of like major restructuring, and something that previously has been maybe hidden may come up and may need to be legalized. So perhaps, like I said, this is in response to, say, a terrorist either maybe attack that maybe has been foiled or something along those lines. There may be some changes, again, in sort of legal status of either some groups or how the process is conducted for sort of allowing people and goods to be shipped long distances. So I didn't really have time to investigate charts of too many countries. I just noticed, just from my memory of US chart, that we have two interesting important transits coming up. In particular, that's to US Pluto, and one is we will have Saturn transiting Saturn conjunct US Pluto, which I would expect to put interest or rather focus on things like debt and rates, and there may be some sort of restructuring of like how banks and financial institutions work, or limits on debt, limits on rates. There may also be restructuring in the government or large corporations. So there may be some, if there was some sort of corruption uncovered, there may be limits or regulations put in place to kind of limit corruption, limit sort of bribing, help restructure debt, restructure government, even purge government. Perhaps, some branches will be restructured, again, to kind of either limit some sort of corruption, limit anything that's been hidden, kind of make things a little bit cleaner in that sense, and or also restructuring, for example, areas that are ruled by Pluto, such as in the US case, it will be like financial systems, but also in general, it could be something like pollution, recycling, nuclear power, any sort of, like I said, loans, debt, rates, sort of financial area like that. And so there might be some stricter regulations. And also another area that's ruled by Pluto would be like something like Secret Service, spying, FBI, etc. So those areas may also see some restructuring, or some limitations or regulations may be put in place. And that could be like a slow but steady process that may involve some sort of rebuilding, like I said, in those areas. And in the process, some institutions may perhaps be either closed, or their number may be reduced, or how they operate may be sort of limited. So maybe some banks will not be able to continue doing what they've been doing because perhaps their debt is so much, or they can't, sustain what they're doing because of excessive debt or something like that. And the other noteworthy aspect, transit rather, to US chart is when then subsequently Jupiter conjuncts US Pluto, and that will be approximately December 2nd through 13th of 2020. And so after this initial perhaps restructuring or cuts or some limitations related to debt, some sort of purges, even related to, like I said, banking system, or sort of how banks can invest, or kind of how they can receive or loan money. There may be some relief for banks or financial institutions, or any of these institutions that I just mentioned that may be affected, such as nuclear power plants, recycling, or even some sort of organizations like police or something like that. So after the initial purging, restructuring, receiving kind of stricter regulations, there will be some relief coming, and maybe some international legal arrangements are made, such that help to kind of those institutions to kind of function better, and assistance is provided to them, financial or, like I said, legal, just to make things kind of easier. And or there may be some news at that time about banks and financial institutions that they may be affected by some laws, perhaps international, or perhaps due to some international agreements. But that should be supportive of these institutions and allow them to kind of improve how they function after this, like I said, initial purge or initial kind of limitations. And so these hopeful news may even come in the form of like increased earnings or reaping some rewards of that initial sort of cut down, dealing with maybe purging losses, restructuring. So that should have a beneficial effect. So now let's move on to the monthly predictions that are global predictions, and they are general sort of for everybody. So January, we're going to have focus on international negotiations, agreements, geopolitical changes, disasters, major announcements may come, especially international or legal, about some very famous person, maybe even like a king or a queen, and that person may step down. Makes you think of, I guess, Queen of England, and or a person may even die or be removed. And it will be like a massive event that's not going to last one day, but it will last several days, and particularly it will be January 7th through the 12th, plus minus a couple of days. And as I said, there will be news about famous, powerful leaders or actors or some performers that may die, step down, or be replaced. And I did look at very briefly at the natal chart of Queen of England, and she does have some aspects in her chart or transits to her chart that indicate maybe some change of, let's say, identity or life goals or something like that. So it's possible that indeed she may step down, and indeed I think the process would take some days for the power to be transferred, etc. Let's see. Then we will have let's see. So whatever the change will be in terms of leadership, could be one or more countries affected. This will likely be a long-term, internationally kind of a wide, well-known worldwide situation. So the person will be really well known worldwide, quite famous, and the effect will be spanning beyond sort of maybe even one country. So it could be resulting or as a result of permanent status change of some territory, expansion of borders of some country, or an event that keeps going. Like say if there's a disaster, it may be hard to stop sort of the consequences. Like the consequences will be wide-reaching, and they may go on and sort of without like an easy way to stop it or put a break on it, just because things are just that scale. So the limits may not work. And if it is some sort of a disaster, like an earthquake or something, like a nuclear plant, disaster or something like that, hopefully not. But it's something, if it's something of that scale, that it may actually bring the market down just because of some uncertainty, at least temporarily. Or it could be something along the lines of like maybe many smaller quakes, but they keep going, and there's some sort of trembling that keeps going on, or there's an earthquake and there's multiple sort of quakes after that, and just something that keeps on and for some time, and so that may be unnerving. Or if there's like a gas leak again, it keeps on and all, like fire keeps on, it's hard to stop it. Or it could be international negotiations that keep on, involve multiple parties or multiple issues, and it's just again hard to find an end, at least at this time, for it. And that's sort of especially 7th through the 12th of January, as I said. Then at the end of January, so about 26th through 27th, we may expect strong market moves, probably down, and also fluctuations in oil prices, healthcare, pharmaceuticals, beverages, issues related to religion, music, movies, poisons, water pollution, etc. Also excessively wet weather, potentially gas explosions, leaks, etc. Maybe some fighting, skirmishes in areas that produce oil or over oil, and it may lead to oil price increases. Then at the end of January 31st through February 1st, we may hear sort of increased news about gold and or silver, possibly due to some increased sales or contracts or some sort of movement. Maybe some country requests their gold to be moved, or some country, buys large quantity of gold to stock up on it, or their gold is shipped somewhere. So the changes in value also may relate to some changes in the value of US dollar and or US monetary policy. So February we have continued focus on geopolitics, large infrastructure projects, etc., and also on mining, steel, minerals, metals, as well as either cold, icy weather and or cold places. So, somewhere far up north or super deep underground, somewhere where it's like icy and cold. And so activities maybe increase in those areas. So maybe like a new mine is developed or some pipes are laid somewhere where it's again icy, cold, dark, whatever, or in the mountains, or more explosives are used to excavate something. So again, the project that requires like literally blowing up, the mountain or rock to make things happen. It could be like some sort of a power plant that's established or opened in a very cold place, maybe like Arctic exploration, nuclear icebreaker, so those kind of news. And or also there might be news in February about various militarized activities, so governments looking to maybe improve their military powers or defenses or security. And so there may be news about hiring more personnel, like military personnel, more police, or deploying more soldiers somewhere to protect significant objects, especially those that are like governmental buildings or entities. On February 15th, there may be sort of specifically on that day, there might be minor positive news for gold, such as the increase in value. And again, this could be due to, value of USD and or some changes in US monetary policy. February 20th through 21st, there could be larger than usual market fluctuations, possibly in some hopes or some optimism about an international deal, or it could be maybe up on the 20th but then reversing to down either on the 21st, 22nd due to kind of this market reaching top at that time, and at the same time there might be increased news about like IT, high-tech, telecoms, aerospace, electric cars, as well as banks, financial institutions, and cryptocurrencies. And as well as about earnings and profits in the US, as well as workforce generally in the global, arena, and healthcare and social services. Regarding the US workforce news, as well as global healthcare, social services, there might be some conflict or anger associated with that. So maybe minimal wages, people are not happy with that, or maybe people are not happy with the kind of jobs they have, or they don't have jobs. So there may be some, I wouldn't say strikes, but some sort of protest against that. So it could be then again 21st market goes up and then it drops down on 22nd, or even 21st themselves are like up and down volatility. So up on hopes and optimism about international trade, but then down perhaps on the news about some groups of people who are, especially in service industries, are not being properly, taken care of, or they strike or something like that. Then February 24th, 26th through 26th, there may be news about some military leader being appointed, or a new military campaign may be announced. It could be in some sort of, again, like I said, cold place, icy place, mountains, or to guard some kind of a high importance leader or an object. 27th through the 29th of February, you may see some increased concerns about cash availability, earnings, loans, rates, taxes, and tariffs. And there may also be news about financial manipulations, maybe some sort of hacking or like a virus with the goal of extortion, and or changes in the value of commodities that are derived by like excavating, mining, so like metals, minerals. And so those may potentially, I think maybe they will go up mostly on the kind of problems with obtaining them, like shortages. And the market on 26th, 27th, 29th of February may potentially go down again if there are indeed serious concerns about, like I said, cash rates, tariffs, taxes, etc. Then in March, we have 2nd through 3rd of March may see additional concerns about cash availability, scarcity of some resources, like can the projects be financed, or are earnings sufficient, and Are there enough, resources for, say, supporting the military, or to kind of implement important projects such as fight fires, or there may be news about lower than expected earnings, and so on March 2nd to 3rd, I think the market may go down. Then March 7th through 9th, there may be increase in likely positive news for banks, financial institutions, IT, telecoms, aerospace projects, and sort of high-tech, communication kind of companies, social media, or social networks rather. Those may report increased profits, and there may also be increased news about Forex, and particularly Euro-USD value. And I guess that might go up for, US dollar value may go up. And so also at the same time, 7th through the 9th of March, there may be increased news about oil, pharmaceuticals, navy, wet weather, chemicals, poisons, religion, music, movies, video equipment, and or lies, confusion, pollution, etc. And in particularly the 9th may be an important trading day where we may see greater than usual market moves, and there may be a reversal from to down from up, so on the 6th. So what I'm thinking might happen is that it may start sort of the 7th to 9th may start positively, or maybe there will be even an up market on the 6th, but then towards sort of the end of this period, so like around the 9th, market may go down on some concerns. Either way, regardless of the direction, 9th of March looks like an important day with, like I said, greater than usual volatility. Then generally mid to late March is the time where we may see or hear about important and massive events in the geopolitical kind of in geopolitical arena. So again, basically, like I said, partnerships, which entity is part of some union, or which country has which border. So all of that may be kind of very much debated, and there may be indeed some finalization of some legal, aspects of it. Additionally, on the negative side of it could be that there could be massive protests, attacks, violent acts, shootings, military tensions, disasters in the mines, power plants, especially nuclear power plants, earthquakes, some important leaders may die, be replaced, military campaigns or standoffs. So it could be something along the lines of like there's a military standoff and finally it's decided, and there's a legal international law comes in and things are finalized happily, or indeed vice versa. There is maybe some sort of legalization of some act, but then there are protests against that within the countries, by people who are not agreeing with that. In addition, like I said, we can also experience some natural or man-made disasters all at the same time. So mid to late March is a tense time in that sense. And also for about a month, mid-March to mid-April, there will be increased focus on debt rates, debt securities, especially like securities issued by various municipalities. And so there may be either an overabundance of the available debt instruments, and so their value may go down, or just too much debt and things just kind of get out of control a little bit or a lot. And basically these will be the securities that are meant somehow to support infrastructure or finance caring for like older people. So there will be a rise of those, either those instruments or their value may change significantly, but either way, like there may be sort of increase of debt many countries may increase their debt levels, and that may be seen as basically this large bubble, and there may be concerns about that. And those may require some swift and aggressive actions by the governments, the affected governments. And particularly 18th through the 20th of March may see major market moves, potentially down, as in like massive sell-offs, because things just look so kind of reaching the top. And or also it could be days of like massive fires, explosions, conflicts about international relations, or arguments about agreements, There may also be increased news about like steel, minerals, conflicts, or accidents related to sports, like a car crash. Athletes may be accused of like government-sponsored doping, ski jump accident, so something like that. And the sell-offs may potentially involve companies or commodities that relate to mining, steel, minerals, large-scale manufacturing, and large-scale infrastructure, especially railroads. There may also be increased anti-government protests, and these may begin brewing at this time, but they will actually continue on, kind of becoming more and more violent as weeks progress. And they may or may not involve sort of another issue at the same time that may come up, such as the legal status of some group or some legal limitations and controls on maybe, immigrating somewhere or traveling. And so these protests may become violent even a few days later, so after the 18th, 20th, things may just start kind of more or less peacefully. And or at the same time, these protests become more and more violent, there may also be various explosions, fires, disasters, quakes, and those may spread sort of over the next few days. So things kind of become more and more like hot, literally, and or just things kind of heat up as far as the, aggressive actions. And as I said, generally like mid-March to mid-April, maybe some sort of a top or bottom in the market, and obviously the associated volatility. So maybe there's some sort of a top, inflation somewhere, bubble, and sell-offs, but then, things are being picked up and kind of taken to the next level. But either way, it will be kind of expansion and most likely, like I said, a top. And particularly, and this bubble may pop sort of towards the mid-April. It finally may kind of finalize, and direction may finalize one way or the other, probably down after this top. Then we have also a focus at this time, mid-March to mid-April, on large-scale construction, especially sponsored by the governments or implemented by some really large established corporations. There may also be beginning or kind of finalization, delivery of some large-scale projects that involve like mining, excavation, digging, and literally mountains of rocks and steel. So if some projects like infrastructure repairs begin at this time, they actually may be quite successful, again, if conducted well, slowly, and well built. So that's a good time actually to begin those. Obviously, the key is to not rush with any of that. At the same time, these may also be repairs in response to something collapsing, like a well-known old building, bridge, tunnel, etc. So it could be just, aging bridges somewhere and they collapse due to earthquake or just being old. And of course, we have, news about the Notre Dame being maybe 50%, having 50% chance of perhaps not being able to fully repair or even collapsing just because of the damage and it being kind of a fragile building. So somewhat stressful time, but again, the silver lining would be that if there are all these large infrastructure projects at the beginning, they actually may be quite successful and they may, sort of facilitate demand for various commodities, mining, companies may benefit from that. And I guess some manufacturers that manufacture related equipment, etc. And let's see, the 21st through 23rd of March look like stressful days where we can have violent anti-government protests, anti-corporation protests, shootings, violent acts, terrorist attacks, accidents, especially in the mountains somewhere involving tall buildings, tunnels, mines, so things that again made of steel, rocks, and or really tall, and or cold. Let's see, and or relate to government or corporate building of some sort. Let's see, the 23rd through the 24th of March may also see larger than average market moves. I'm not sure of the direction, but again, they look like dates where there may be increased market volatility. And then finally, 29th through the of March through about April 3rd, and especially March 31st, yet again are times where we may hear about various disasters, earthquakes. Disasters may involve collapses of old buildings, airplane disasters, involving something that's flying, like rockets, satellites, or mountains and soil, like mudslides, mines, attacks, fires, especially again, old building or famous building or corporate building or something like that. Protests, sports-related problems, maybe some sort of famous athlete is reported to suffer an injury or is accused of doing something, like maybe they beat up somebody, you know, I meant like in some bar or something like that, or they're hurt and they're unable to perform some sort of blasts. And again, blasts could be part of this new infrastructure construction where it's, you know, a good thing that there's a beginning of this major construction, but, you know, things need to be, you know, blasted, like a dam needs to be secured or whatever. Or it could be something where, you know, blasts occur uncontrollably or as an effort to stabilize something. So it could be like a dam, mine, tall buildings, even data centers. So it's something that needs to be like intervened to help things, basically prevent them from collapsing or being destroyed. There may also be issues with social media companies or some service outages. On the positive side, there may also be a good time for starting a long-term project in the area of like IT, social media, even airplanes, so building something or something as advanced, kind of more involving kind of a high tech, etc. And those may actually be successful, and there may be indeed setbacks or some problems, but with enough effort, I guess this is the time to overcome these problems and setbacks, and with enough perseverance, these actually may succeed. So if there's a problem, it may be repaired, like with airplanes, or, you know, maybe some data center suffers a major outage, but then this infrastructure, you know, part is fixed, or things are moved, or things are repaired, and it becomes better than before. It could also be a positive time for companies that are related somehow to steel, metals in general, coal, or do development underground or tunnels. Perhaps, you know, that project that Musk is spearheading with the, you know, borrowing tunnels and sending some trains or something like that through the tunnels. So those kind of projects may receive more attention, and they actually may receive positive news about them being successful, or at least at that time. And there also may be increased activities involving these kind of projects, and maybe some projects may finally be, you know, that's been sitting in the back burner can finally be implemented, given the green light, or there may be renewed interest in related commodities, again, due to these projects being approved, or, you know, innovative, you know, projects or infrastructure projects, and there's some renewal, and so the resources are needed, companies that produce equipment are needed, and so those particular areas may actually benefit. However, market-wise, 29th through April 3rd actually may be more of a downtrend for that particular time period overall. So in April, 3rd of April, may see increased interest in things like oil, gas, pharmaceuticals, navy, chemicals, as well as topics in the news that may pop up may relate to like lies, confusion, religion, video and audio equipment, beverages. And 3rd looks like probably a down day for the market. 5th through the 9th of April may see disruptive or surprising news for financials, fintech, you know, cryptocurrencies, telecoms, IT, high-tech, aerospace, cloud service providers, etc. There may be service outages, volatility in the stock prices of those particular companies. There may be some accidents, like an airplane accident, sudden start or stop of a service, or change in leadership in those companies. And there's also higher than usual probability of explosions, fires, bad weather, especially that involves like wind and lightning strikes. And so obviously this may lead to an accident, or, you know, problems with transportation due to that kind of a bad weather. Or there even be some surprising things like holes, you know, potholes forming in the road, or these, you know, sinkholes forming and in the ground, or some other sudden events like transformer blowing up, you know, power loss. And so this affects these companies, again, providing these sort of network-based services or airplanes and communication transportation more generally. There may also be increased number of attacks or fights among various groups or organizations that kind of fight for freedom of some sort, or there may be news about like these cyber hacking, cyber hackers who demand money, again, some virus, like something that spreads via the internet, or there may be news about some major companies' email or network being hacked and kind of that hackers demanding ransom. So April 13th through 15th may also see significant market moves, as well as announcements related to like leadership, important famous persons such as, some Hollywood celebrities, reformers, as well as solar power, gold, entertainment industry in general, as well as things like debt, taxes, bonds, and there may also be increased focus on nuclear power and international deals at that time. April 30th through May 4th may see increased news about finance, cryptocurrencies, IT, aerospace, electricity, electric cars, power generation as electric plants, as well as social media, travel, communication, and retail sales. So basically anything to do with like exchanging information, or especially financial information, or anything that involves kind of a high-speed data processing may be affected at the time. And also at the same time approximately, so starting on about April 30th and going through May 9th, especially May 1st through 3rd, there may be increased news about oil, navy, beverages, chemicals, pharmaceuticals, religion, movies, fashion, and so forth. And these particular, areas may experience some negative news, and their value may go down, like sales may be down, or perhaps some sort of project like oil-related project, oil shipment, transportation, or development, excavation, may be suspended or delayed due to either confusing communication, or the cost of transportation, or some fashion houses marked on some controversy, or some addictive substance sales may be down, or their value is down. And the essence of the conflict could be that the asking price is too high, like something is seen as overpriced, or the price perhaps is attractive, but supplies aren't available, or they cannot be transported to the willing buyers, or the buyers somehow are unable to pay for the goods. Again, they may have the money, but they're just unable to transfer the money, or they literally are just not paying for the goods that have been delivered. So these issues will start, let me repeat, April 30th through May 9th, but we will have again these same periods, these same issues come up as a follow-up in around like mid to late May, and then late July, so July 26th or 28th is when things may actually get resolved. So whatever the issues that may come up at this time in late April and early May, they may come up back again in late May, especially the 20th or 23rd of May, and perhaps the final resolution could be in July 26th through 28th. So, if the buyer wasn't paying the money, maybe finally they pay the money, or the shipment finally can go through, or whatever the negotiation was, that something was overpriced, finally the right price is agreed upon. So moving on to May. In May, there may be revaluation of products and services related to areas like oil, gas, pharmaceuticals, beverages, movies, music, and healthcare as well. And the focus may be on retail sales, communication, and transportation. So either the sales may be down, or there may be concerns about prices or availability of these services, or perhaps the service is not adequate for the price, and so the sales are down. And so there may be a revelation like, do we need oil at this price, or do we need that much of it? Is the healthcare, being provided adequate, or is it overpriced? So on a sort of subjective level, consumers may feel like their spending at this time is not as enjoyable, like they're not getting sort of the value for their money, so to speak. And so the consumers themselves may be kind of taking a step back from spending to reevaluate their values and preferences. What do they really like? How much do they want to spend on what? And or the I guess sellers may be concerned about certain areas like young consumers and females, and this may be related to games, phones, social networking. So there may be either concerns about these consumers perhaps not spending as much, or these consumers being unhappy with services provided, or perhaps there will be like a sort of a new idea about how to engage these particular groups. So generally, like, the sales may be down especially for these groups in these areas, because again, the young people and females are not as happy with services being provided. And this may relate, like I said, to communication, gaming, and or in general, there may be an effort, kind of a more vocal effort, how to make sort of better products. But as I said, there may also be kind of concerns about also sales of like oil or pharmaceuticals or healthcare services or communication and transportation companies. So there may be some concerns about, are consumers happy? Consumers may, stop spending as much because, again, they're unhappy with prices or the quality of services. So then specific dates, May 1st through 3rd and or 4th, there may be large market moves, possibly a drop initially, followed by a swing to up either on the 4th afternoon or the 5th of May. 7th, 8th, or 7th through 9th may see increased news about gold and or silver, which the value may go down, possibly due to changes in the USD value or changes in US monetary policy. May 17th through 24th, especially the 20th and 23rd, may be important dates. And these may see issues related to oil, navy beverages, and this could be a return of issues from April 30th and May 9th. So if there was some negotiation or project that was suspended, a sale was suspended because there was confusing communication, or shipment was delayed because either the transportation cost or weather, or like I said, the fashion house was, maybe they came up with some clothing that was controversial, or some addictive substance was kind of, not properly, I guess, or the sales were down or the value was down, and there's some problems with it. This may come back around 17th through 24th of May, especially the 20th through 23rd. And as I said before, the resolution of this may be around the end of July. So some sort of final, finishing touch on this situation. In May, the 22nd also looks like a strong day where the market may experience larger than usual moves. It could be a big drop, and possibly because of the concerns about oil, gas, or navy, water pollution, and or pharmaceuticals. There may also be like confusion, lack of clarity about future moves or some sort of agreement, and some nervousness about the situation. Lack of clarity may also just contribute to market going down on the 22nd of May. So for June, we have 2nd through 7th, especially 3rd through 5th, could be down days, potentially again due to the uncertainty about some communication, or transportation companies maybe not doing as well, or retail sales may be down, and or confusion or anger maybe over some deal or agreement that was supposed to fix, bring prices down. So like I said, there was previously maybe some concerns about consumers being unhappy with either prices or quality of things or services. And so some deal may be reached to take care of it, but perhaps it's not going to be good enough. And so uncertainty about either deal being reached or how well things are fixed may bring market down. Additionally, there may be problems with athletes or just related to sports or athletic fashion. June 9th through 14th may see strong focus on oil, gas, pharmaceuticals, chemicals, navy, water, poisons, religion, etc., lies, confusion as well. And there may be fighting, disagreements, attacks, fires, explosions, lies, and protests. So again, maybe some sort of lie comes out and people are protesting against it, or there's like a fire, at some sort of oil refinery, or even there's an accident or an attack on an oil refinery or oil platform, some oil rig. And so the market may drop down due to either disruption of supplies or even uncertainty about, like I said, deal or about the future, sort of supplies. At the same time, weather-wise, there may be excessively hot and humid weather, obviously in the areas where that's realistically possible, or there may be news about sort of underwater volcano erupting or volcanoes that are positioned on islands that are surrounded by water. Let's see, June 19th through 21st may see important announcements about leaders, like heads of state or corporations, especially corporations that involve like technology, IT, social media, media in general, communication, transportation companies. A new leader may emerge, or rather existing leader, let me say it again. A new leader may emerge or an existing leader may basically see decreased popularity, and their sort of status, their position may change. And so it could be due to basically news posting something about them. So it's not something that they necessarily did, but rather what's in the news being posted about them. And so they may have to come up and be responsive, and they even may be removed, and a new leader may need to come up or be appointed. So June 25th through 27th may see important announcements about like athletes, sports, military fires, even fighting, attacks, conflicts, or arguments. So for example, there may be communication between international partners that is, running into some problems, or it's too harsh, or there's too much like threatening kind of communication. There may be conflicts over international agreements or shipments, anger over leaders, especially of communication and transportation companies, and or problems with retail sales and or transportation accidents. So some sort of disruptive time, and somewhat of a time where if people are prone to accidents, like somebody who's racing car, for example, that they may be more likely to end up in an accident. July, I don't have too many specific dates for July. I guess it's just ongoing background influences I mentioned in the beginning, obviously. However, noteworthy is this end of July, especially 26th through the 28th, where we may see the return of focus on oil, pharmaceuticals, gas, navy, either religion, beverages, audio-video equipment, and or some confusion and issues that previously have come up, where maybe some negotiation was suspended because the price wasn't attractive, or somebody couldn't pay for something, or the goods were fine, price was fine, but things couldn't be transported. So finally, on July 26, 28, this issue may be resolved, and either, the money is returned for the goods, or the goods finally can be shipped, etc. Then July 27th, all the way through like the end of September, and especially during the period August 24th and August 28th through the 30th will be important. This will be a fairly long kind of a multi-month period even, where there may be serious conflicts, upsets, and arguments over international policies, international agreements, or settles of various territories. So that's end of July through September, especially August 24th through 30th will be kind of a peak times of this influence. And so there may be important decisions made regarding policies or agreements that involve like land, real estate, savings, assets, as well as sports, mining, steel, and coal. So to me, this looks like basically dividing of the territory, dividing of the goods, who gets to keep, basically which bank's assets, and who gets to keep, the land or the territory that has certain resources, especially the ones that can be mined. And so let's see, at the same time, there may be some arguments where there's a push to limit something, maybe, you know, slow down the excavation, slow down the sort of withdrawing the resources, or to put some controls or set some borders and limit some, basically, the use of the land. So for both, like I said, the purposes of getting all these resources, but also for even producing food. So basically, who can have access to which land to do what on it. And at the same time, there may be power struggles among leaders of like states and corporations, anti-government protests, large earthquakes, mudslides, disruptions in transportation, athletes getting hurt, attacks, fires, explosions, and market at that time of these kind of turbulent events may also go down on concerns about stability. And that's end of July through September, with end of August being kind of a peak time for some of these events. And specifically moving on to August, the important dates in August are quite a few, where we can have large market moves, probably mainly down on conflicts in agreements, or agreements and deals that elicit anger. So August 3rd through 4th, 9th through 13th, 22nd through 24th, and 28th through 30th are sort of the most disruptive times. Then on the 5th of August, there may be important announcements or developments related to things like sugar, precious stones, candy, pastries, fashion, and female leaders, or leaders who are feminine somehow, or maybe male leaders, but in one of these areas. And products or individuals from these areas may actually be seen more positively than usual, or their value or popularity may go up. August 9th through 10th may see some disruptive or surprising news related to IT, airspace, electric cars, power companies, telecoms, cloud providers, and banks, finance, cryptocurrencies. There may also be windy weather with storms, tornadoes, lightning, so increased chance of airplane accidents, power outages, and just basically these sudden onset events that then they can be cleared relatively quickly, but cause sudden disruption nevertheless. And finally, August 28th through 29th may see increased focus on oil, pharmaceuticals, healthcare, chemicals, navy, beverages, audio and visual equipment, etc. There may be some confusion, unclear agreements, lies, poor communication, travel or transportation delays, and all of this confusion and just kind of a disruptive time may bring market down most likely. September 1st through 4th may see increased focus on finance, profits, earnings, loans, rates, banks, real estate. There may be some negative news actually, and or concerns basically about the rates, interest rates, and or the value of the real estate. The real estate value and or bank assets may actually go up, and this could be related to some sort of new initiative where either old, previous deals, previous, debt, previous loans, they somehow may be expedited to either close things that are, I guess, that lead to losses, or help things to conclude, basically bad things to conclude faster, and purge something, and or the permits for new projects or new buildings, etc. may be granted faster. So something is implemented to kind of speed things along, where bad things can be purged and kind of new healthier instruments can be, I guess, implemented. And so there may also be at the same time increased news about either sports, athletes, or military, and we may hear something about like an athlete receiving an extraordinary sign-up bonus, or some sort of a overpaid athlete, not necessarily overpaid by their personal opinion, I'm sure, but something that's like out of ordinary, and or maybe excessive expenses on some military campaign or sales of weapons. Let's see, then on September 10th through 11th, there may be increased focus on oil, pharmaceuticals, gas, healthcare, navy, audio-video equipment, religion, as well as news about some confusion or lies or deception, or even spiritual, some sort of events. about like, monks somewhere, or even things like prisons or elderly folks who are maybe spending long hours somewhere in the hospital. So there may be minor problems in those areas. Prices or value may briefly go down, possibly because of the confusion about leadership or the direction where a particular business or resources where they're headed. What's the decision, I guess, about these areas, and maybe an issue has been known all along, like it's not a new issue necessarily, but some details may come up at this time to detail how bad things are, like how somebody's mistreated, how bad someone's leadership was, or basically maybe there was an accounting error that finally now needs to be disclosed, and some embarrassment, causes some embarrassment, and so briefly, therefore, these areas may go down in value. September 14th through 15th may see surprising or disruptive news for IT, telecoms, high-tech companies, aerospace, etc., and electric companies, power companies, and these may have to do with like power outages, value or earnings being down, service outages, maybe like cloud provider can't support something. Contract or deal is not reached due to some disagreement about the value. There may also be reports of excessive expenses on some projects that didn't really pay off, and maybe also like banks, increased news about banks, cryptocurrencies, forex, construction. And again, these projects may see either some disruptions in their services or negative news about them overpaying for something that wasn't worth it. 16th or 17th of September may see important announcements about someone's leadership or important famous person. Maybe a leader has changed. In particular, a leader could be a woman, somewhat of a feminine man, or somebody who is from like a food industry, fashion industry, healthcare, women's health kind of oriented areas. And the announcement may leave some, folks split, or rather public may be split about whether or not this is a good thing, this leadership change, or this person, whatever the news is about that person. Half may be excited about it, half will not like this person, and or they will not like the change in their status. 23rd through 24th of September may see increased news about contracts and deals that are negotiated at this time because they are not going smoothly, or there's some disruption in communication to the point of one party is almost like verbally threatening at the other party, or they're just acting kind of too rashly, and so negotiations tone may become quite harsh, if not threatening. There may also be increased news about sports or racing contracts, and something again may not go as well as expected, or something may be imbalanced. September 25th through October 4th may see increased chance of earthquakes, mudslides, various disasters, mining accidents, governmental officials getting hurt or dying or just being attacked, anti-government protests, and other unsettling events of that nature. And there will also be increased news on metals, steel, chemicals, minerals, and structures like tunnels, bridges, old buildings, tall buildings, government kind of buildings, and infrastructure projects. So these structures may collapse, like I said, either due to earthquake, which is them being old and not maintained, and or it may be noted that they're in the urgent need of repair, and so some old established leaders may come under attack, either physically, just like an accident or something, or they may be under attack for perhaps allowing things to go into disrepair, and or their actions may be scrutinized kind of more than usual, and they may be obviously receiving some negative publicity for that. So October 5th through the 22nd, especially October 11th through 16th, may see the continuing theme from September. So, increased probability of earthquakes, kind of old established leaders getting under fire, being attacked again for perhaps mishandling something like infrastructure, not being in proper repairs, or just, getting hurt somehow. In addition, there will be, in October, we may see more violent outbursts, so like protests, as well as disasters, either natural or man-made, accidents and attacks of various sorts. In particular, danger may be people who are like older, especially like established, well-recognized folks like government officials, as well as athletes, racers, people who are, I guess, somewhat have some risk because they're in public eye and or doing something dangerous as far as their profession. And the issue may involve, or the accidents or some attacks may involve fast-moving objects that meet hard rock solid wall. So like explosion in a tunnel, explosion underground, plane hits a mountain, race car crashes into a wall, something that goes really fast, possibly flying, and then it's abruptly stops. And also there's a danger of problems or accidents involving nuclear power, nuclear weapons, or nuclear power plants. Those may receive, not receive, but they may be in danger of, having a fire, some explosion, problems with used ore, like how to store it, sort of recycling, issues, or problems in general in recycling plants, or problems with pollution, especially pollution from sort of radiation or some events that cause radiation to exceed normal limits. Then let's see, October 16th through 19th, so Friday into Monday, we may see large market moves, probably a drop or at least volatility. There may be increased focus on military leadership, arguments over leadership, and or news about some commodities kind of being at the top of their value, some sort of bubble forming, which then may drop. And again, so maybe on the 16th things are up Friday, by Monday perhaps they're drop. And those may involve things like minerals, metals, especially steel and coal. Also, there may be increased news on the value of oil, pharmaceuticals, chemicals, gas, and news about like religion, drugs, poisons, pollution, and or confusion about something, like the value of something is not clear, or there may be deception about something, like for example, there may be news about some chemical attacks, and then subsequent arguments what sort of leaders of states should do to respond. And market may respond to this in an exaggerated manner, and so there may be a sell-off, by Monday. Then let's see, October 19th through 20th may see some surprising activities or disruptions related to IT, telecoms, aerospace, planes, electric cars, power plants, fintech, cryptocurrencies, and finance. So there may be some disruptions in like services, cloud providers, for example, or social network may be down, or there's some outages, so power loss, and or beginning, of some project that has not been expected, or some project suddenly is basically canceled. News may be shocking, coming very fast and changing, so maybe some conflicting news, reported maybe that, some person is leaving, the network, or the network is down, but then it's up, then it's down again. So things like that. There may also be military campaigns that involve rockets being launched, and or surprising reports about sales of communication devices, or some negotiation may take a surprise turn. So the outcome of some negotiation may be different than expected. The retail sales kind of volume or I guess price may be different than expected, and that may involve communication, social media, etc. So things that are kind of flying around quickly, and so that may be quite busy as far as the news for those dates. The 20th may see an important announcement about, again, a female leader or somebody who is like a man but maybe a more feminine, or who is a leader in the areas of like food industry, healthcare, women's health, and the change could be in their status or news about their earnings. And the announcement again may leave public sort of split, half will like this person or like what the change will bring, and have maybe quite disappointed. Let's see, then we have October 30th through 31st, so that's Friday into Saturday. There may be surprising or disruptive news about IT, aerospace, high-tech, electric cars or plants, telecoms, fintech, cryptocurrency exchanges, social media networks, and things like that. Then October 30th through November 7th, there may be negative news rather, such as delays or restricted movement, and those may affect communication and transportation businesses, including like media and social media. There may be some service outages, disruption, power losses, increased controls may be imposed by governments, and that may cause, some concerns. There may also be delays or some just barriers to basically those communication transportation companies to do what they normally do. And or the tone of the news may be kind of depressing or negative for some reason. The delays in transportation may be related to weather, so the weather may be excessively cold or windy, and there may also be ongoing difficult trade or partnership negotiations among countries or large corporations or among leaders, so some tensions among leaders, some tough negotiations. Things may be progressing rather slowly, encounter delays, obstacles, that's communication, trade deals, or transportation. And some decision may be initially announced like in early November, but then reversed around November 3rd, which is interestingly, of course, the day of the US presidential elections. So there may be a reversal that brings a correction to some decision that had previously been announced like on November 1st. And then on the 3rd, perhaps around the 3rd, there's a change in the direction. And then by 5th, the decision is reversed or the opinion is reversed. So speaking on November 3rd, I saw, again, I briefly looked at it. I didn't analyze it in too much depth, but I do see there are so many significant transits to Trump's chart. So it does look that he may win. And at the same time, regardless of whether he wins or not, I see that he has the nodes, moon nodes, returning to their natal position. So whatever the outcome, it looks like he will feel like it's very much fated. Whatever the outcome is, that it's not like it's his fate to be in whatever situation he's in. And like his destiny is being decided for him, and he will be driven to fulfill whatever, that destiny will bring. And he will be feeling like it's his lifetime purpose, that, whatever he's going to be doing at the time. Interestingly, on the day of the election, Mercury goes direct. So in the morning of the election, it's retrograde, then it goes direct in the afternoon. So to me, it says that maybe there's something could be like a confusion or sort of an opinion swaying one direction in the morning. By the afternoon, things are sort of repaired. So maybe if there's a power outage or a delay with delivering some sort of communication, or something is misspoken, or opinion, like I said, goes one way, then by the afternoon things may either have been corrected, or if there's a outage, it's been fixed. If somebody couldn't get somewhere to the polling station, then now they can. So some sort of a change in information, change in sort of direction of perhaps opinions from morning to the afternoon. Let's see, then we have 14th through 16th of November, where we may have increased focus on things like debt, rates, loans, earnings, financial institutions, banks, and their value, I guess, and their earnings. It could be an overexpansion, prices are too high, deal is reached where things are out of balance, maybe one side overpays for the services based on some sort of too much optimism or over-promising, partners get into too much debt. The bubble, is peaked as far as something is overvalued. So the deal is reached, but some companies really overpaying for some acquisition. And it's because of kind of a hyped up promise, overly optimistic mood, or too much borrowing. They either have too much free money or they're too optimistic about the acquisition. 16th through 17th of November may see surprises or disruptions in IT, telecoms, aerospace, high-tech, electric cars, plants, power plants, airplanes, social media, etc. There may be bad weather, again, too windy, and or lightning storms, etc. And so there may also be some service outages for banks, or like cryptocurrency exchanges, or some payment terminals at the stores, or there's some outage, either power outage or data service, outage, and or online sales or money transfers. So either volatility for those companies, like their stocks, or volatility as far as the services that they offer, where sales are not as predicted. Like I said, power outages, service disruptions, miscommunication, that the update of the software doesn't go well. Sudden project changes, something is canceled, or suddenly surprising, like it begins earlier than it was scheduled, or something is announced that wasn't expected. November 18th through 19th, Could be down days because of some concerns about the cash availability, as well as decreased earnings, limitations being put on sort of institutions to get financing, kind of making things hard to borrow money, cash flowing slower, more controls, or just sober mood, focus on long-term profits and outcomes, and kind of being a little bit more down to earth for the investors. So 18, 19 November may see market down. Now, December 9th through 10th may see increased news about a male leader or some sort of famous figure like a prominent actor or something. And this could be related to either international connections, international travel, legal circumstances, or like lawyers or lawsuits. This person may be a lawyer or a judge, or they're involved in those international connections, negotiations, or travel, or some sort of legal circumstances that they're part of that. The news may be poorly received by the public, who may dislike the person or the news. The reason for dislike could be the confusion, lies, deception, use of drugs, chemicals, poisons, religion, religious disagreements, etc. So this person may either do something that's perhaps seen as illegal, like deceptive, or maybe they're doing drugs or something like that, or the circumstances around it may be seen negatively. So maybe this person is portrayed as being a liar or something like that, and the public knows that they're not, but yet they are obviously upset over this portrayal. So this may involve even some sort of audio video recording being available, or involve musicians or movie stars, so some famous people from those industries, or perhaps even a doctor, healthcare provider, somebody who's maybe providing some service in that area, like takes care of that person. And the upset may be over things not being clear, so it either is upset, like I said, of this person doing something bad, illicit, or lying, or about how things are portrayed in this some sort of deceptive way. At the same time, even though the public may not actually like this person, or not like the news, this person will most likely receive, if say it's a leader of the state, they would receive government support from military and or athletes. So athletes support them, they like them, or maybe this is a leader that needs to do something military, and so the military would support them, and or this person will be able to continue commanding sort of the military and or use weapons, despite whatever public thinks of the situation. Then we have also December 9th through 31st, so pretty much almost the entire month of December, may see increased news about volcanic activity, quakes, mudslides, and or probability will be high for various disasters, accidents, especially involving mines, old buildings, underground or mountainous locations. There may be also some news, bad news I guess, for the established older or conservative leaders. Their status may change, and actually, I'm sorry, I take it back. So maybe positive news for such leaders. They may become more popular. Their power may increase. They may make new international connections. However, there may be concerns that this person is kind of making too many international connections. Like, why are they focusing on this international connections instead of looking at what needs to be done at home? Or maybe that this person is being too magnanimous or too kind of full of themselves, acting like a king instead of focusing on, again, people that need their help, or that they're spreading themselves too thin, starting too many projects, promising too much, and kind of going overboard with spending, crossing some boundaries. At the same time, we may also hear increased news about like nuclear power plants, nuclear weapons. Maybe there's an increase of various projects that involve specifically nuclear power, or number of nuclear weapons increases, their potency increases, and or increase the number of actual nuclear power plants, or increase in pollution specifically from radiation. And it also is going to be a good time for various projects to improve infrastructure, because again, there may be news of things basically collapsing and not being in such great shape. And it's particularly great for large-scale projects such as cross-country railroads, international trade pathways, improving conditions for miners, improving things that have to do with like Secret Service, police, investing in healthcare projects, and especially we may hear about investments, or it would be a good time to invest in, and by invest I mean government sponsoring, like grants, etc., in projects that, healthcare projects that involve research into like tissue regeneration, particularly like bone tissue, teeth, or improving death experience for people, who maybe are suffering from cancer, etc. So this is a time where, on the one hand, we can have all these disasters. On the other hand, with proper investment and support, especially from government or from large corporations, there may be important scientific discoveries made, and or major sort of restructuring can be done to improve infrastructure, to improve conditions for, like I said, miners, even improve, how police works, or improve how, maybe improve some circumstances for companies that involve in metal, steel, coal production. And so in general, regardless of what exactly, will be improved or not, there may be in general increased focus in December on topics related to like mining, minerals, metals, especially steel and coal. And the availability of these commodities may increase, and or their price may become more volatile. So perhaps temporarily they will balloon, but then the price may drop. So around the December 21st may be a turning point. If something indeed had been rising in price, like I said, maybe steel or coal or something like that, or manufacturers of equipment that's necessary for mining, then around the 21st, things may go down because of associated news. Perhaps, balloon, will have burst. December 20th through 26th, especially the 23rd, may see increased probability of accidents, especially involving nuclear power plants, submarines, floating reactors, or just really any other disasters, and or major earthquakes. And those may involve like water, like tsunami, or occur somewhere where water is nearby. There may also be increased, number of attacks like shootings, violent acts, and anti-governmental protests. Then December 29th through 31st, 2020, may see important announcement about the company or a leader, especially a female, and particularly in the areas or in the business related to like fashion, sugar, precious stones, jewelry, finance, cosmetics, as well as oil, healthcare, chemicals, pharmaceuticals, navy, music, movies, etc. So this company or this person, as I said, most likely probably a female leader, they may somehow, the report may be that maybe the earnings are less than expected, or they perform more poorly than expected. The value of related products is decreased, maybe, or there's some confusion or uncertainty, or lies or deception. Something was portrayed better than it was, and now sort of the truth comes out. So the news may lead to negative perception by public of either this person, like a company, or of what basically information they had previously communicated. And so this company or leader, they may be also like the leader, the person may be the leader of the company, and or they could be like a lawyer or judge or a diplomat or somebody who is involved in like making international connections or international deals, and or the company itself could be like a multinational corporation or a company that involves in like shipping things internationally. So there's some international connection to that. Or even if it's a jewelry and cosmetics company, it could be related to somebody who is like signing legal agreements for that company, or somebody who's involved in like shipping things for that company. So there's some negative news for them because of some decreased performance, decreased value, decreased earnings, or just some confusion, uncertainty, and some sort of deception. Let's see, then briefly just to touch on maybe just a couple highlights for 2021. January of 2021 will continue, especially January 9th through the 16th, may continue to see increased probability of like a major earthquake, disasters, attacks, military interventions, and increased news about mining, minerals, metals, coal, etc. This could be a stressful time, and there may also be increased controls put on various weapons, or perhaps weapons of a particular kind, especially weapons that somehow can reach further or cover a wider area, and or use some advanced technologies like airspace or something like that, or some weapons that are super duper fast, or rely on distributed architecture, some sort of cyber weapons or multiple drones that act like this one unit. So something that consists of multiple parts and none of them plays a central role, but there are these nodes. And then the 9th of January of 2021 through the end of the month, maybe a time where there may be increased news about banks, financials, forex, fintech, currencies that are offered by like social networks or online sort of retailers, and cryptocurrencies. And there may also be increased news about companies or projects that but rather feature something like innovative and cutting edge or futuristics, like some sort of IT company or IT projects, AI projects, aerospace again, mining of asteroids, like esports or video games, or some unique, crazy weapon, I don't know, laser weapon, something that's like very unique, futuristic, some super fast laptop, or maybe a gadget, wearable, technology, etc. Something that's like futuristic, could be used as a weapon or could be used for transferring data really fast, or some sort of just really brilliant, way of solving some sort of a complex problem that takes a lot of computing power. So at this time, either the companies that are involved in these projects or projects themselves may grow and expand like super crazy fast, and especially internationally. So this will have either been like January 9th through the end of the month of 2021, a peak of sort of their expansion that previously been happening maybe some prior weeks, or this is the time where this expansion will just go off the charts. So this could be like a fad of some sort, like maybe some craze on social media, or a brand new gadget that's just completely cutting edge and totally new and everybody wants to have it, or like a video game that just again completely takes over again for some short period of time, and the excitement that may come with it will be something like when people play lottery or they're gambling, and it will be just a lot of hype, excitement, and the thing itself could be, like I said, futuristic, and or it could be an online or electronic thing. However, after this initial expansion, there could be a period where the growth just cannot be sustained, or maybe there are too many users and the service just will have to be turned off or experiences outages because there's just too many people trying to use it at the same time, or there's not enough supply of whatever the gadget is, and or it may be a problem to the point where things are just addictive, and some countries may put some limitation on whether or not who can use it or who can play it, or some sort of limitations to slow things down can be put on the international level, even disallow it. However, this some sort of an online thing or electronic thing or high-tech thing can, blow up really fast and then either disappear, or temporarily at least that whole increase, maybe it's a new cryptocurrency, the value may go down quite a bit, and this reversal or some sort of critical junction or breaking point, whether it's legal act against it or just, power outages or things just reaching saturation, will probably occur around January 20th through 23rd of 2021. And at that time, there may be some reversal in value, shortages of availability, outages, but this could be temporary. And then, sometime later, the service may recover. At the same time, the temporarily things will need to be put on a back burner, not back burner, but on hold to kind of fix outages or kind of allow for kind of a growth to continue, but it will not be quite as crazy fast as it has been previously before maybe the service was suspended or before some change was implemented or legal issues had come up internationally. And also last, I guess, news for 2021, rather not news, prediction. We'll see if it's in the news later. For 2021 is the end of April, then end of August, and early to mid-December of 2021 may see larger than usual market moves and possibly a major rise in the value of gold, at least fluctuations in the value of gold. And this may be related to US monetary policy changes. So that's again end of April, end of August, and early to mid-December of 2021. I haven't made too many predictions specifically for individual leaders or individual countries. Like would have been interesting to look at the chart of US a little bit closer, and China as major players, but that would have been a whole, separate sort of investigation. And so I may, time permitting, do that, and or please follow me and on my channel and or on my blog at tolstunka.com, and I will be posting, as I have been for years, predictions on a weekly basis. And so then I'll be able to look at charts of individual countries and or at events for a particular week in a little bit more detail, and I usually post those over the weekend. So that was it for 2020, and Happy New Year, everyone. Hope yours is the best one ever. Okay, bye.